Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Beyond Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Petrolis, and I am so excited for our guest today, someone who I think is just a tremendous coach, has a tremendous reputation, and has taken programs and really turned them into state powerhouses. Before we talk to that coach, I just want to give a quick shout out to John Brewer's Tavern in Malden. We were down there Thursday night. We did an awesome podcast with Gene Bain, the head basketball coach at Brandeis University. And we were able to kind of, get down there, really see a cool sports place, eat some really good food, and they welcomed us very well. So I just want to give them a quick shout out and say thank you. And we look forward to doing more work with you guys in the future. But back to our coach. Now, I have quite an introduction for this coach. So if I mess up, this coach can correct me most certainly. But I'm just going to read you a list of accolades over this coaching career. He's been 25 years as a head coach, coaching for 34 years. Has a career record, again, I could be a little off on this, 188 wins, 99 losses, 1 tie, has won a Super Bowl. Stoneham Independent Coach of the Decade. Has won countless league championships. 2-time Cape Ann Coach of the Year, 5-time All-Star, coaching at 5 All-Star games, the Boston Globe and Boston Herald 2 times Coach of the Year, the Patriots Coach of the Year 3 times, the Lowell Sun Coach of the Year. And like I said, I was just talking to him before, the Lowell Sun covers some tremendous teams and some tremendous coaches and programs. So to win that for that paper is pretty impressive. But someone who I'm really interested in, kind of going to geek out today and picking his brain about a football program. Ladies and gentlemen, from Stoneham High School, Bob Almeida.
Oh, thank you for having me, Anthony. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I kind of said it right at the end of that introduction, but one thing that you seem to really specialize in so well that I really am very envious of you is how you're able to take programs and really turn them into, state powerhouse programs, compete in big games, playing, playoff runs and everything else in Super Bowl. So I'm really interested as a football coach to really hear from you and really kind of pick that brain of yours. So I'm going to start it off with your tenure at Wilmington. Now, I just want to let the audience know a little bit that, you were a head coach in Somerville, and I know we're going to allude to that and talk about that throughout, how that was such a big learning experience for you. But just to give you an idea, and before I forget, I can't forget that Coach also sent me a Stoneham football hoodie. I talked to Coach on Monday, and I had this on my doorstep Wednesday morning. He got it stitched, sent to my house, personally delivered. That was one of a kind. That's when I knew. I was like, okay, I knew we had something special, but even more so just the organization, and right away it was done. So I know that's how his programs probably ran as well. So, but I want to talk about Wilmington because I currently live in Wilmington High School, and I've heard the legend about you here through neighbors and people at the high school and so on. But, you took over a program at Wilmington High School that was in an 11-year span from 1984 to 1995, was 31, 87, and 3. You took over in 96 and you coached there till 07. Your record was 104, 28, and 1. So almost a complete reversal in a lot of senses. You won 5 league titles, shared 4 of them. 1 was solo. 96, your first year, you were 7-0 with this team. You finished 9-2 with. And then in 2004, you guys were undefeated before losing in a playoff game. So, and you've had some good teams in between there as well in Wilmington, obviously with the record you have. I guess my question to you right off the bat is, talk about building and changing a program, because it's not just changing the product on the field. When you're a losing program and not winning a lot of games, it's changing the way you're perceived by the student body, the school, the community. So there's a lot of change that goes into rebuilding a football program, not just necessarily on the field. So talk to us a little bit about your thoughts and how you go about transforming a program from the ground up.
I'm glad we started with Wilmington. It was a really, really important part of my life, not just my career, but my life. But to be honest with you, when I started at Wilmington, I didn't view this as a daunting task at all. I was just so excited to get a second chance. An amazing stat is that my first 10 years of coaching, I did not have a winning record. 7 of them as an assistant coach and 3 as the head coach of Somerville. 10 years consecutively of losing records. A lot of coaches would have probably given up, but I love football so much, and I love coaching so much, and so I knew what I knew. Well, to go back to Somerville, we were in a tough spot. Obviously, Somerville, did not have a lot of great tradition. We had great kids. I mean, they were tremendous kids, and I still am very close to them to this day. But we didn't have a ton of talent. We played in a very strong Greater Boston League. Our facilities were, I won't go into too detail, but
I know the old Doughboy field. I know what you're talking about.
They were a little rough. And to be quite fair, I was not a very good football coach. There was a lot of areas that I was lacking. Had never been a coordinator before I got the job. So there was a lot I didn't know, and there was a lot of ways that I didn't handle it. But, it's so funny because all the kids that I talked to back then, they think I was a great coach and they always do some wonderful things, but I know different. So I had to kind of hit the reset button a little bit when I left Wilmington. And I applied for an assistant coach position at Beverly High School. And when I first got there, the first couple of days that I was there, I said in that local paper that I had died and went to football heaven. And, it offended some other people previous, but it really was. I went from a place where there was no really tradition, where we were inexperienced coaches, changing offenses, like change underwear. I mean, it was crazy. So I got to Beverly and I really learned firsthand how to run a program. Roger Rosinski was the head football coach there at the time. And Roger was a good coach. They had a winning tradition. The kids were really into it. We had talent, no question about it. Played in a tough NEC, but we had talent. But I learned that you don't have to throw out 14 formations at a time. You can literally sit in one or two formations, and at least that's my philosophy, and really execute. So they taught me about the value of execution, and it sounds silly, but the value of the KISS method: keep it simple, stupid.
Right.
And so I learned a lot there, and I was really excited to have the opportunity now to try to create another program in that image, which is what I really wanted to do. So I applied for the Wilmington position, and by some miracle, I got it. I had a 3-25 record at Somerville as a head coach, and 6-25 as a head coach, and I was just so blessed and so thankful that I got a second opportunity. And so the first thing I did was I got the tour from AD Jim Gillis, who I'm forever grateful for. And he took me around the facility, and I'm in the school, and he takes us down these stairs, and the locker room coach's area is called the cage. This is way back, the old building. And, he was kind of apologetic about how, old and decrepit it was. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome. This is in the building. We go downstairs. This is fantastic. And then we walked outside and we were on the practice field. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is
because the high school at Somerville and Dilboy are so far away. You have to drive there. I mean, really.
3.5 miles. The kids that weren't older and had cars had to take public transportation 3.5 miles, and God love them. The kids that stuck with it, it's amazing. Yeah. I give those kids more credit than you can imagine. But then I loved my game field. I loved the game field at Wilmington. So all of that was good, and I'm saying, wow, we're really onto something here. Then I really poured through the game tapes from the year before, and I was stunned at how much talent was really there. I mean, the record didn't indicate how much talent. I mean, they were 4-7, but they lost 2 or 3 games by punt, messing up a punt, or just a lack of, a little bit of lack of execution, similar to what I did in Somerville when I was the head coach. Yeah. But now, honestly, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. We have Billy Harrison, Sean Kerrigan, and Richie Gillis are my running backs. They got to be the best running backs in the league. And then the linebackers, Sean Kerrigan and Jamie Campbell. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. These guys are unbelievable. Yeah. So we got out there, and there were other great spots over there. We had Mike Giannetti. I don't know if you know Mike, but he's the defensive coordinator for Merrimack.
Oh,
and he
wow.
was my
Okay.
corner. He was a sophomore corner, and Dave Diamato was my safety, and he ended up being a long snapper at Syracuse for 4 years. So,
Okay.
we had some talent. I was
Yeah.
like, whoa, this is something. So, we went out and now I was convinced more and more that we were going to be able to be successful. Got out there and the kids were unbelievable. I walked around with my clipboard and I'm taking names in my first couple of practices, and the kids were hurt. They looked up and said, "Coach, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm taking attendance. What do you think I'm doing?" And he said, "We go to practice, Coach." And they did.
Yeah.
After 4 days, I tossed the clipboard away and that was it. So anyways, got on first 7 games. First 7 games, we won, and I had only won 6 in the 3 years. And I got to be honest with you, I was so nervous week after week after week. It was like building up. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This is uncharted territory for me. So
Yeah.
we ended up, losing a tough game to North Andover, but big crowds. And the better we got, the more crowds. The game was at North Andover, 7-0 versus 7-0. Huge game for the league title. And I swear there was nobody left in Wilmington. There was absolutely nobody running stores in
Just
Wilmington.
shut down. Yeah.
Kickball at the game. Man, it was packed. It was exciting, but we lost. I made a bad call, but we lost. And we ended up being great. We ended up being 9-2, almost beat a Super Bowl champion. And everybody said, well, you had talent. You had a talented group. And honestly, one of the biggest things that I wanted to prove was that no, we can do this. We're going to establish something, and we're going to be strong every year. We're not going to be, strong and then weak. So we were able to do it, and like you said, the record and that bears it out. Now, I had good players, and I had them all. It was like running back for the time that I was there. We did some really good players. I also had some great coaches, which I gotta I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna throw those guys out there.
Go for it.
And Mike Barry is just a fantastic coach and good friend, but he was my number one for 12 years and fantastic coach. Gary Nyan is a very popular guy in the Middlesex League. He was a veteran coach, had been the head coach at Reading, and I learned a lot from him. Carl Stoffer, fantastic. Steve O'Neill brings the juice. Rich DeLucia, the most loyal man I know, and my good friend Tim Jones. Sorry, I had to do it.
No,
But
I think that that's wonderful because you know what? Like all the recognition that you had and the great coach that you are, for you to be like naming these guys and taking a second to do that just shows obviously how important it is as a head guy to have people that you can trust and that you recognize over these years of who are really good assistant coaches and how they probably have helped your program more than maybe you realize early on in your coaching career.
they threw it all out there. And this is before, we can talk about technology later, but this was before, Huddle and all
Huddle, yeah.
that. We had the VHS tapes, and we were Monday nights. We were in there till our eyes were bleeding, arguing and everything. But ultimately, we came back. We came out in the field as one. But the other really lesson that I learned is I learned so much from Jim Gillis. Now, he was tough on me. I mean, he was tough on me, really, from the beginning. He was tough on me. But I think it's because he had kind of taken a risk maybe by hiring me. An unproven guy, pretty much.
Yeah.
But he talked about scouting reports, and he talked about every week I expect every one of your kids to have a 12-page scouting report. And I never did it before, but I'm like, this is great. All my coaches that coach positions, the special teams coach, he's got to do it. Now, this helps him. It helps him know it, learn it. The defensive coordinator, all their sets, the personnel, and the offense. So it really was great. I had my little middle school kids at Somerville, where I was teaching at the time, making the color covers for me, like funny ones. I resorted back to my BU days when we used to get the scouting report. There was cool stuff on it. So it was fun. And he also talked about how the band and the cheerleaders and all that stuff have to click, and that we have to get them on board to believe in what we're doing and to support us and for us to support them. So the first thing I did was I met with Barbara Meddy, who was the band director, and my goodness, I mean, I don't know if you saw the Wilmington band, but they are.
I have. And it's so funny that you say this because I was going to go into this. So let me just segue into this a little bit because I think this is really cool. So when you had won the Super Bowl in Stoneham, there was an article that I had read about you, and it dated back to your days in Wilmington, a cool little tradition that you had. So again, I'm not going to do it justice, but I'll just kind of explain what I read, and you can correct me as needed. It basically talked about a tradition that you had in Stoneham that involved cheerleaders. It dated back to Wilmington with cheerleaders and the bands and singing the song like, hey, baby, ooh, that song, right? And so you guys would sing that. And to me, when I read that, I was like, I can't imagine like being a superintendent of those schools or principal of that school and like seeing the student body, especially in the fall, running on the field, excited, the football team's doing well. And many people say the school year goes as the football season goes. And if you start off with the bang and do really well and have a lot of, school pride and school togetherness and all of that stuff, that is contagious in your school culture. So talk about this tradition that you have with singing a song after the victory and what it's kind of really turned into for you.
Well, what's funny is this actually didn't start in Wilmington.
Okay.
It's a funny story, which please, cut me off when I've got long enough. But this is awesome. So when I met with Bob Almeida, she said, "Well, Coach, this is great. I'm so happy that you met with me. This is great. Is there a song that you would really like that you would like us to play for you? Is there a song?" And I said, "As a matter of fact, there is." And I thought back to 1989 when I was coaching with the legendary John Pappas at Belmont.
Wow.
And we weren't very good that year. I think we were 3-7, and a Friday night at Wakefield, and we're getting killed. I mean, we're getting murdered. They were very good. We weren't very good. But the band, it was great. The band was fantastic at Belmont. And I had heard it a couple of games earlier. So they start with, and they get the whole thing. Hey, so I'm trying to be cool, but the game's over. It's the fourth quarter. We've been clock watching for the whole second half.
Yeah, you're hearing things. You're hearing things. Yeah, absolutely.
I got the head going a little bit. I got the pop. I got the shoulders a little bit, and I don't think I'm loud, but I'm like, hey, baby, I want it. And John Pappas was standing next to me, and he turned around and he said, "What are you doing?" He just absolutely lost it, which was hilarious. So anyways, so every time, now we won a lot of games, and they were there for most of them at Wilmington, but every time that Barbara Meddy thought the game was at hand, they would strike it up, and she would decide that it was time to play Hey Baby. And it got into the stands where literally the whole band, the whole student section were all singing, the song, and even my kids on the sideline were bopping to it. So, but on another note, we had, I am really long. We're out every time we won a game, home or away, the whole team would get out in the middle of the field, and that's when we bring the band out, and cheerleaders would come out, and there's over 100 kids over there, piling on, and whoever was the best player that day, would go 1, 2, 3, and we would sing the school fight song, which I made them memorize during camp, and that was the opponents didn't like it, but that was really fun. So,
yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's really cool. I remember when I was a head coach at AC and we played Arlington on Thanksgiving, the coach came over and kind of talked to me about a little tradition that, they did at the end of a game. And obviously I use that as fuel going into the locker room being like, what their coach said to me, so I'm sure it's been used fuel against you too a little bit, but hey, you know what? Your win-loss record everywhere you've gone is a lot more wins and a lot less losses. So it doesn't work that well. But, the next thing I really want to jump into is obviously you had this great success in Wilmington. But one of the next stops, obviously you mentioned your assistant coach stint at Beverly, but also now kind of jumping into Malden Catholic a little bit. Now, I dug up some information about you when you went to Malden Catholic and became the head coach. And again, you spent 3 seasons there. You inherited a program that had 5 straight losing seasons and 1 winning season between 1998 and 2007. Okay. So you were there 3 years. 2 of the years, 08 and 2010, you had a winning record of 6-5. And then obviously in between there, you had a losing record. But let's not downplay the competition. I mean, I had Jonathan Brillo on here earlier this year from BC High, and when he read his schedule to me, I was like, what the Patriots weren't open that week? Like, that schedule was insane. So I know that that's the gauntlet you run coaching at Malden Catholic, and playing schools like BC High and Xaverian and St. John's Prep and Catholic Memorial and anybody else that I'm missing. No disrespect, but that's a tough conference. I mean, and then obviously being able to get kids from different cities and towns, that's also different than having everyone lives in Wilmington, everybody lives within a 10, 15-minute radius of each other. You got kids living all over the place. So, talk about playing in a very, very difficult league that you played in, and having success. To me, 6-5 in that league, and I'm sure your non-league opponents were no jokes either. So talk about your stint there at Malden Catholic.
And really the main reason I wanted to do it was, and advice for young coaches really is appreciate every win, appreciate it, and enjoy every single win. And really towards the end of Wilmington, it just seemed like 9-2 every year was not enough, and I stopped like really enjoying the wins, and I started being relieved that we didn't lose, and that's a really terrible way to go about it. So I wanted another challenge, and certainly Malden Catholic and the Catholic Conference is a major challenge. And you are 100% right. I mean, all 4 teams in that league besides Malden Catholic are absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the talent, we were really outmanned in size, speed, athleticism, across the board, and just sheer numbers. I mean, we were by far the smallest school. And they had some, without getting into, too much, they had a lot more advantages, really, than Malden Catholic did, at least at that time. I won't speak, to now, but we were proud about, our non-league record. We were like 15-5 non-league and playing some really good teams. So we were really proud of that, but we really just didn't match up, and it wasn't close. I mean, we had 1 league win in the 3 years, and it really wasn't close. It wasn't competitive, but we did have some good players, and we weren't a bad team. We just were in a buzzsaw every single week.
Right. Every week you're playing a league. Those teams play in any other league, they're league champions in those leagues for the most part.
But we really did. We had some terrific. We had some good players that worked really, really hard and got on to and played college careers, which is, we were really proud of that as well. I mean, Mark Sylvester started 4 years at Bates. Quinn McDonough was the starting running back at Malden at Merrimack. Will Guiney played at Dartmouth. Matt Haribo was captain and a star running back at Assumption. Rudy Favad at Sacred Heart. Mike Kelleher and Larry Guiney, Bates, Corey Gapp. The list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Those guys were good players, but we, in general, our program just didn't match up. And, it just wasn't, and it really just wasn't a great fit for me. So, even though I love the kids, and I had actually built a really good staff over there at the time too. Again, gonna name them off.
Go for it.
Rich Tobby, just awesome guy. Jeff Smith, and a terrific DC. Billy McDonough, did a great job. Steve O'Neill, again, brought him over from Wilmington. Great coach. And Jan Kuhlman, who's a terrific position coach, who ended up being the head coach at Belmont.
Yeah.
Correct. So, we did have a good thing going, but realized it just, it really wasn't a great fit for me. And,
I mean, that's a staff. Like, I've listened to those names. I was like, I know that name. Like, that's a staff. I mean, that's pretty good staff too. So again, it shows that level of competition of what you guys were seeing week in and week out. Absolutely. What was next is obviously where you are now is your stint at Stoneham, which I think is just incredibly impressive. I've seen you guys play live quite a few times. And I'm impressed with the toughness and the downhill that you guys are on both sides of the ball. It's impressive. But again, just to throw some facts out there about Stoneham coming into it. Now, I know when you went to Stoneham, you went over as an assistant coach, I believe the offensive coordinator. You took over, or part of a program takeover that they had a 31-game losing streak that included 6 consecutive losing seasons. And I could be a little inaccurate about that, but kind of doing the math for max preps. And then here, I mean, and then here you go, right? So you take over as an assistant, as a coordinator, and then you take over next year and become the head coach. And I'm just going to throw some numbers out there, and again, some teams that you lost to that went on to win Super Bowls respectively after you probably lost to them. So, 5 straight North Final games, and you won 3 of them. Went to the playoffs and lost to teams like Hollis and St. Mary's, who I gone against every year in the Capital Central League, and and so Middleborough, and then obviously earlier this year we got on Bryce Gilbo from Old Rochester. You guys had one heck of a game, Super Bowl game that you guys played each other in, and it's interesting. I'm going to hear your perspective on it, where I kind of heard his perspective on it a little bit before. So I guess my question to you is, coming into Stoneham, obviously 31 consecutive losses is 31 consecutive losses. I mean, how similar was your approach? And I'll use Wilmington for an example. How similar of your approach of Wilmington to Stoneham as far as a rebuild goes was the same? I mean, how much of it was the same, and how much of it had to change maybe because of just a change in scenery?
Honestly, I really didn't. I just wanted to have fun coaching again, again, I didn't come to Stoneham to be a head coach, and I didn't come to Stoneham to vie for Dave Pignoni's job. I just wanted to help out a program that was struggling, and I knew that I would be able to do certain things that would improve them. I didn't envision the success that we've had, but I really just wanted to help, and honestly, to work for an AD that is unbelievably supportive. And I could go on and on for the rest of this podcast about Dave Pignoni. He's just amazing. But even like the year before, he had asked me, he had reached out and asked me if he would spend some time. I would spend some time with him and his staff and talk about, program building and all that stuff. And I just loved it. And I loved being in there. Yeah. And, shamefully, the last couple of weeks, driving down to Malden Catholic, I wanted to take a right turn and go up that parking lot to Stoneham and be with guys that, and again, no reflection on Malden Catholic. Just, I wanted to be around a guy with juice like that, with Dave and the other guys on the staff who were terrific. But, so we won 2 games, which was being an offensive coordinator. We weren't scoring a ton. But, the year before, they had 32 points for the entire year. I mean, that's got to be tough. And, and so, but, I thought we'd be better. And, I talked about today, look, I don't think I'm done yet. I think I'm going to be applying for jobs if they open and trying to, be a head coach again. He said, stop. I'm an AD. I got way too much on my plate. Please apply for the job. I would love you to do it. So I did, and you talk about staff and all that stuff and how important they are. Well, Jan Kuman, I brought him over from Malden Catholic and had him be my DC. But more importantly, and he did a good job. But more importantly, was he really he made the Kool-Aid for the weight room, and these kids drank it. We got the kids in for the first time. They hadn't done that in many, many years. And we got the weight room full, and kids started believing it, and they started getting the juice. And it was honestly, it was phenomenal how hard those kids worked. And they had nothing to hang on to. They had 2-42 the previous 4 years. They had nothing to hang on to. And yet they believed in me and Q. And, I also was fortunate. I brought Rich Tabby over too, which was great. And Chris Yancey,
I know Chris. Yeah.
And just the nicest man in the world and the most loyal guy. And he does anything you ask him to do. So he was a tremendous help. So we ended up winning our first 7 games, believe it or not. And I mean, I love the juice. I love the big games, and that was a big game. Wakefield was 6-1. We were 7-0, and the entire Stoneham stands were packed, and it was awesome. We had a great game, but we ended up losing. And quite honestly, Coach Almeida made a bonehead call, and Q made a couple too that day. So, but the kids, you asked the kids to show up in those games, and we did, and they really did. So, we didn't finish strong, but that the table was set, and we've really progressively gotten better every year, and also built up the staff quite a bit. I was fortunate enough, halfway through this tenure, to bring in John Rafferty, who I had competed against when he was the head coach at North Andover every year, and great coach, really great coach. And I got him on as DC. And those 3 years really made some huge strides defensively. Just a fantastic coach. And then when he left to take over the head job at Wakefield, George Bailey, and the longtime Burlington defensive coordinator, called me up, and I was so thrilled to have him come on board, and he did an amazing job. So, we've really had some good kids. We built this thing through the weight room, through hard work, and through kids that totally believe coaches that'll do anything they can. And I actually brought, from that first group, I brought two of my players, our assistant coaches in my program now, Matt Dabeningo and Darius McPherson, two great players from those early teams, and they've got the young blood too. So
it's nice. It's nice when you have that balance in your coaching staff of experience, because, like you mentioned, like it takes a young guy or a young coach to get them all juiced up, like you said, for the weight room, or to show up to 6 a.m. practices, or to go hard in doubles back in the day. And, that's like you said, it's contagious. And I think that's kind of part of your recipe of your success has really been that you've been able to do that and find the right mix and balance of coaches and to get these kids to believe. And I think that's doing my research on you. That's what I found so interesting about you, is that you have a knack for that. And I mean, even when you mention your staff and MC, a lot of those guys like head coaches and defensive coordinators elsewhere prospectively, and very good at it too. So it's cool to hear that you kind of have that Midas touch, I guess, in a way, when it comes to building the right staff, not just necessarily building a staff to have people to say you have people, but having the right guys that want to come coach with you too, that ask to come coach with you.
I also think it's important too to get a couple of guys on your staff, no matter how good your staff is. You have to have a couple of guys that are invested, either like at MC, that went to MC, or Wilmington and Stoneham that are Wilmington Stoneham guys, and have them, because they care, and they really just don't care about personal glory, personal accolades. They just want to do the best they can for the town. They have something to coach for.
Yeah. And I went to Holland Catholic. I played for Serge Clivio. I mean, I have no shame of admitting this. Like, my last day of practice, I cried. Like, I did not want to get off the field. I knew what I was leaving behind, and I didn't like it. And as soon as I was out of college, I was there coaching. So I knew, and I think you're so right in saying that you have those people that love and did it and went through it and like understand it. That's great for younger kids to see, like people that have kind of gone through that, whether it was under you or before that. I think that's really special. And obviously you won the Super Bowl, you went undefeated. I mean, you guys in 2018, right? Yep. 2018. So what I found was a really cool quote from the paper for you, and I just want to read it. And then obviously I'm going to ask you the question that I'm sure anybody would ask you, just the feeling of winning a Super Bowl. But you were interviewed shortly after you won the Super Bowl, and you had said, it's a lifetime accomplishment for these men, seeing what they have done for the town of Stoneham, our school, and our community. It said you were holding back a little bit of emotion. This is just beyond belief. I'm so happy for every single one of these kids. They did it. I'm just so happy of all the coaches and players. Just a heroic performance. And you guys had a dramatic, late game, change in score to kind of win it. So, obviously winning a Super Bowl, I won it as a defensive coordinator in 2008, and it was awesome. I mean, the experience is surreal. I mean, being the head coach, it's a whole different ball game. It's a program that you took over, to think where you came from, where you got to, and that team was pretty damn good. I mean, I saw you guys play quite a few times that year, and what was scary was that you guys could pound the rock, and you had a couple backs who could do it, and your quarterback could do it too. And in your system of offense, if the quarterback is a running threat, it becomes that much more difficult to stop, because now it's a three-headed monster, and that's not easy to stop at any level. So, talk about winning a Super Bowl and just the feeling. I mean, you really kind of said kids and coaches, but what was that feeling like for you?
Um, it actually brought, I mean, you couldn't help but bring tears to your eyes. I mean, this is something that you strive for. You don't know if it's ever going to happen. I can remember working early on in my career, and I'm a fan. I'm as much a fan of high school sports as I am a coach. I love it, and I would go to the Super Bowls every year. And I just remember, I told the coaches in the meeting, I was a young knucklehead, but I said, I'm I'm going to coach until I get to go to a Super Bowl. I want to coach in a Super Bowl. And they said, why? You don't get paid any extra for this. That was it for me. I just couldn't even believe that those words came out. I mean, it's the culmination of everything. I mean, but this group particular, and I have to go back to these kids because they actually they decided that this was going to happen. They decided in the off season. We had 40 kids. We only have probably 45 in the program, and 40 of them were in the weight room 4 days a week. I mean, they decided that that's what it was going to be. We did have talent, but we had guys step up and start for us and have great years that you never, like when Dave comes down and says, so you're missing a lot of line guys, coming back. Who's going to be the guys? I said, Dave, we're going to go with Antonio Ventresca at one guard. He goes, what? He was a 3-year JV fullback, never played line. He was unbelievable. He made all league, fantastic player. Brendan Doherty was a backup lineman on the JVs the year before. Again, they just killed themselves in the off season, and they just were tough. They were absolutely tough. And I was so happy that you put that much into it, that you get the result. And I was thrilled for them. But I was also thrilled for all of those kids that played at Stoneham for all those years that got to see. They were so prideful of seeing their team and their guys in Gillette. And I just was overwhelmed. And at the end of the game, I ran over and I hugged my brother because he was with me for every single game, good teams, bad teams. He was involved. Mostly he was my guy in the sky, in the booth for many years. And I just hugged him, and it was just such an emotional moment. And hugging Dave and being able to give Dave, what he deserves, which was a Super Bowl, Dave Pignoni. So
yeah, it's cool, and just I was gonna say, just so the audience understands your style of offense. I mean, guards are so important because your guards are pulling all the time, and they are lead blocking in a lot of ways and a lot of your plays and how they get downhill. So, for those kids to work that hard and play those guards, I mean, guard is a huge position in your offense. And I love what you said about with your brother. I mean, my older brother and I, when we won the Super Bowl, he was the offensive coordinator. I was the defensive coordinator. We were both captains at Alta Catholic under Surge. I mean, I remember the three of us hugging each other at the 50-yard line. That's like something I'll never forget. Like that was just.
Your coach was a great guy, by the way.
Yeah, I mean the man.
No better guy in the world than Serge Glavio. Just so we know.
He was my first guest on here, and he brought the heat. So it was awesome. But yeah, I get that. And I love to hear that, and I think especially where you've been working extremely hard and the success that you've had to get that moment. That's cool. That's just really cool. And there's the transition. As I said earlier in the top of this broadcast, like I really am interested in picking your brain a little bit. So I'm going to ask you just some more football type questions to kind of hear what you think. Now, we alluded to your offense a little bit. You've been coaching for over 34 years, 25 years as a head coach. I know in the mid 2000s to late 2000s, spread became a craze. And a lot of people just started running spread, because it was popular. You were seeing it at all three levels, and it really took over. Passing took over the game, kind of like three-point baskets are taking over the game of basketball in a sense. It's more entertaining, more points, higher value, the whole 9 yards. During that tenure of your head coaching and being, in control of programs, have you always stayed true to kind of being that power running, or have you flirted with spread before and just realized, you know what, I'm going to stick to what I know?
Um, yes, I have stuck. I've changed it up a little bit. I mean, I've changed offense, but the same premise of being a running team and in a lot of tight formations. But the one year that I did go spread, um, and by the way, I'm not a fan of spread, but I do agree with you that when the early years of spread, people did not know how to defend it. It was kind of like stealing, like what Murphy did over there at Drake. Early on. I mean, they were killing people in that thing,
Yeah.
and it was a weapon. But now everybody runs spread. So if you have the best athletes, if you have the best talent, the best athletes, you can run pretty much anything, including spread, and be really effective. But the one year I ran it at Malden Catholic, we had a bunch of possession receivers. We had guys running 5.340s, running bubbles, and St. John's Prep saying, okay, let's make this a 5-yard loss. You know what I mean? They would just, we just didn't have the personnel to really do that. And I think we would have even had a better record that year had we stuck to what we do. But now I really do think it's an advantage. People do not like to defend what we do.
It's hard. It's hard. It's really hard for high school kids and having 4 days of preparation to get them to read keys and to consistently do it all game. It is really hard to prepare
and all
for.
summer long, what are they doing? They're 7-on-7s. You got corners that that are just cover corners that are just running. They don't want to take out a kickoff block. They just don't. So it is but I will say one thing. It's an offense that you better score points on. Now we've been fortunate since we've been in it. We a little tailspin this year a little bit, but we've been scoring a lot of points. But this is not an offense you want to be in if you're not scoring, because the Boo Birds will get you really fast, because it's not sexy. It's not
right.
It is what it is. But the kids like to win. Parents like to win. Coaches like to win. And I think it gives us our best chance to win at this point.
And I agree. I used to see St. Mary's and Austin Prep twice a year, and you would see that same type of offense, obviously a little different, I'm sure, tweaks and everything else. But, with Bill Maraday, you saw precision. You saw exact game plan, and kids, if he told them to whatever to do, they did it times 10. And with St. Mary's and the Matt Durgan, you just saw it with speed and toughness. So it was like seeing two completely different styles of offense of the same thing and having to prep for them. It wasn't easy. So I agree with you. It's not an easy off unless you're defensively, you're really good and your kids are, they really understand it. Then maybe it's a different ball game.
Both great coaches, by the way.
Oh, phenomenal. I mean, I say it to everybody. I mean, I coached against Dave Woods and Bill Maraday and Ron St. George and Matt Durgan and Bill Kinshirf. Like, those are really good coaches. So the prep against those guys offensively week after week, I loved it. Like, I loved it. So it was a challenge for sure. I'm just curious on your thoughts, and I know we had a little bit of a phone conversation about it, but the current playoff system, I mean, we talked a little bit about what it was, say, in the 90s and the early 2000s to kind of what it's become over the last 5 to 7 years. I mean, are you a fan of this playoff system?
I think I stand fairly alone in this stuff, but I am a huge fan of it. I think, we were like the only sport who not a lot of teams were making the playoffs. And, it really makes me sad that there were so many teams in Wilmington that were 9-2 and 10-1 and didn't go. And, it really was tough. And when some of the people who are the biggest proponents of changing to almost back to where it was with, 6 or 4 or whatever teams, 8 or 4 teams making it, statewide, they were the ones that were convincing me back in 2013 or whatever it was that this would be a good thing. And it really is. And the other part of it, Anthony, is that these leagues that we are in do not necessarily make a lot of sense anymore. When they were constructed, they were kind of balanced and there was a lot of like teams in it. We're the smallest team in the Middlesex League by far. I mean, we have 640 kids in the whole school. For us in the Middlesex League, to get to that point where we would be in the top 4, whatever teams. It's hard to do. We have to just, the reason I like this system is we will have to win enough games to get in, and then we know we're going to go against teams our size in the playoffs, which is awesome, and we've done well. There was one year that we were the 7th seed going in out of 8 teams in our section and won the North. So I think it gives more teams the opportunity. So many coaches and people are hung up on the fact that they think the low seed playing the high seed, early on, they a lot of blowouts and so forth and so on. But isn't it that way in baseball and basketball? I mean, I see the same thing, the Sullivan rule and all that other stuff, but it's just my opinion, and I voice it.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of what we did. I think there has been a compromise a little bit this year, where instead of having 7 games and then 3 weeks of playoffs, it's 8 games. So we're having an 8-game regular season schedule, which will eliminate, the situation we had at Triton where they were 0-7 and got in the playoffs. That's probably not right. And I believe we're close to, if we're not there, we're close to saying that you have a 3-win minimum. You have to win 3 games or you don't get in, which I think is reasonable as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I think anyways, I like it.
I agree. I know. I totally agree with you. I mean, I remember in 2010, we had a team that started off like 0-4. And then I think we won like 5 of our next 6 or whatever that it was. And a team like that would never see the playoffs when they could have been really scary because they were playing so well towards the end of the season. So,
Right.
I think I agree with you. I hear it kind of both ways as well. But to me, you never know. I mean, you made it as a 7 seed. You guys went on a run with it, and like you said, you could have arguably saw better teams in the Middlesex than you saw in your playoff. And that's no disrespect to the other teams, just more respect that the Middlesex is that good. So, and one of the last questions I'll ask you, Coach, before we jump into our 2-minute drill, and I love to ask a lot of our coaches this question. I mean, you've had such success for such a long period of time. You've rebuilt programs from the ground up. You've had your failures in learning from those failures in order to kind of gain where you are right now. What would be your advice to young coaches out there that are getting into the game and want to grow in this? And I know you and I both said this a few times here and even on the phone, as a young assistant coach, like, part of the advice I would give is just really the longevity of learning and learning and learning and learning and learning, So I'm just curious of what your advice would be to young coaches out there getting started.
First of all, I think the number one thing that has to be is loyal. Be loyal. Be loyal to the guy you're working for. Be loyal to the kids. Be loyal to your other coaches. That's huge. And I've most of the time I've been fortunate, but like I've fired 4 coaches in my entire career, and all 4 were for not being loyal. And so I've had a lot of great guys and so forth. But I think that's number one. Don't cut corners. Don't cut the corners. Don't try to take the easy way out. Do whatever. Okay, do whatever is asked of you, and do it to the best of your ability. You got to bring the juice every day. You got to have some level of knowledge, but I don't think that's the most important thing. I think watch film. I love these guys that come in and they offer opinions, and then you look back at their huddle, because you can look back at the minutes.
Oh yeah, I know.
2 minutes this week. Okay,
right.
2 minutes of huddle, and you're going to have an opinion. Watch a lot of film. Learn from the other coaches, and above all, be patient. Be patient. You get an opportunity, whatever it might be. It might be the freshman coach. Be the best freshman coach you can be, and then move on to a position coach on the varsity. Be great at that. Be really great at that. When you get an opportunity to be a coordinator, don't, just hang in there a little bit. I think you prepare yourself better by doing all of the facets. And be a guy that rolls up his sleeve and says, no job is too small. I'll do anything. No job is too small. and do it really well. But that's my
And I think that last one sticks out the most. It's like, do what you need to do. I remember my first year at AC, I won't name names, but I remember I was there, I was a 22-year-old, like, yeah, like I'll run for a wall right now, and then, one of the coaches had a couple of their babies on the sidelines. Like, do you mind watching these kids for 10 minutes until my wife gets here? And I remember being like, oh my God, but that's what you got. Okay, coach, I'll do that for you, no problem. And then I'll come and coach, so yeah, you got to do that. And, this was a treat. This was a lot of fun, Coach. I hope you really enjoyed yourself on this, but we're going to jump into our last segment. It's called our 2-minute drill. This is how it works. I'm going to rapid fire questions at you, 1 or 2 word answers. I will give you some time to explain if you need to. I do get a challenge flag if I want to hear something a little further or have you explain it, and vice versa. I'll give you 1, 2 if you want to explain and answer a little bit more. So I'm going to start this timer, and away we go. Of all the leagues you've coached in, which league was the toughest you've coached and you played in, your team's actually played in?
Oh, there's no question to get the conference.
Okay.
Close.
All right, here we go. 4th and goal from the 3-yard line. What are you running?
It depends on the game. I don't mean it's not a quick answer. If we depending on what we have, if we're pounding them and they don't call timeout and I'm getting to the 3-yard line, I want to punch it in. I want to run power or crisscross, or jet. Sorry.
I love jet. I love jets. And that offense is the toughest place to stop. Your top 5 coaches, your Mount Rushmore of high school coaches that you either played for, coached with, or coached under, whoever.
The top 5 that have influenced me are more the top 5 that I think are the top 5.
However you want to put it is fine with me.
It's a different answer.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you the one, that I think. I think Tom Lamb, Natick, is, and know whatever, just special, just a fantastic coach. Another one that people they underappreciate is Bobby Aylward from the old Tewksbury coach. Bobby was just one of those guys that played in a meat grinder of a league in the MVC at Tewksbury, and I won't explain it anymore. You can. He's just got the kids to play at a higher level than they ever possibly could. I'm in Colombo. I mean, my goodness, what can you say? Just years and years. Coach John Pappas, and yes, he is my good friend. But Coach Pappas is a phenomenal coach at all different levels, and man, he can get it going. And my personal favorite, Billy Ty. Bill Ty is incredible coach, beloved coach, excellent coach, even better person. You want to talk about, he's the man that we should all strive to be, and God rest his soul. He had so much of an impact on me as well.
Great answers. I know some of those guys, and yeah, you're absolutely. I remember Coach Pappas when I played in high school. I went to Pappas camps, and he talked like that, like you loved him. Like I loved him. I didn't even know him, but I loved him. So that's funny. Coach that you always hated the game plan against.
Ooh. I hate saying it. Because I still play him. Timmy Morris, Melrose.
I figured. Okay. Most talented team you've ever coached that didn't win a Super Bowl?
That I've coached that didn't win a Super Bowl? The 2000 team. And I say 2000 like it's yesterday. I say it to my kids. The 2000 team. They're like, all right.
Yeah.
But the 2000 team at Wilmington was really, really special. I mean, they were really special. And you'll appreciate that because you mentioned Coach Woods, but we were scheduled. This was before playoffs. We were going to play them right to the Super Bowl. And we were really, really good. I mean, really good. We were 10-1 this year and had the Division IV Player of the Year out, his backup out. We had 4 starters out in that game against Pentucket, who was my nemesis. And Dave Woods went to every single game of ours. He and his staff went to every single game.
They go to every game. They go to every game.
They were certain that he was going to play us, and no matter, and if it wasn't him there, he sent people there. They were there a half hour before the game, and they took notes. They were sure. He actually, so we lost a really tough game to Pentucket. A lot of that we maybe shouldn't have lost, but anyways, bad call, whatnot. We lost the game, and Dave texted me the next day and said thank you. Not texted, I think he called me or whatever. Said thank you.
Yeah.
We didn't want to play you, so that was a great team, really great team.
Okay. And the last question I'll ask you is Week 4 NFL, Brady versus Belichick. Who's winning the game?
Well, I'm a Brady guy, and I also think it's not. I mean, I love Brady. I think he's absolutely the GOAT. They did some wonderful things together. I don't like Belichick, but I respect Belichick. He's the best coach that's ever coached. But I do not like him. But Brady, I'm rooting for Brady. And he has a better team. I mean, this team is loaded. This team has got everybody back.
I mean, he could play till he's 50 with the offense he has. I mean, realistically, he keeps himself in shape. He could. I mean, he really could.
I have no idea, but the dude is just fantastic.
Yeah, it's insane. Well, Coach, you've survived the 2-minute drill. And like I said to you at the top, and I said to you right before this, it was a pleasure having you on. I think this was great. And I can't wait to watch it back, truthfully, just to kind of, re-listen to it, take some notes, and really put this together. This will be a lot of fun.
Can I interject one thing before you cut out?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to give a plug to my guy. If college coaches are paying attention out there.
Yes, please do.
Peter Godfrey is a Division I tackle. He lost this past year because of a basketball injury, but he is 6'6", 295, and comes off the ball with a flat back and knocks people off the ball. Great work ethic, great player. He lost all he has is sophomore film because he lost his junior year. He also averaged a double-double in basketball, so he's got some feet. But the kid is really great. He's a Division I player. Come on, guys. Let's go.
Yeah, listen, we'll plug that out there for you. I'll send it to a ton of people. We'll talk after the show. We'll work on something for that. But like I said, thank you for coming on here. It's been an absolute blast, and it was great. I hope you enjoyed.
I loved it.
So until next time, guys, Anthony Petrellis here, Bob Almeida, Stoneham High School. Next week, we'll be back. So thanks so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.